pandemic of violence floods the streets of major cities as cases of the media-dubbed murder virus, MV20, soar, causing those infected to go on killing sprees. Caught in the middle, police detective Angela Miller finds her only trustworthy ally in the self-proclaimed psychic PI, Gerald Henry. As the two try to navigate the violence, they are drawn into New Age guru Abramelin Harvest's plot to heal the planet. Harvest's missive:
the world is sick, and humanity is the infection.
The cure: murder. From the twisted mind of Shawn Baker, author of A Collection of Desires and Shadow Play in Book 1, Kim and Jesse, comes his most vicious novel yet, Murder Virus. Available where books are sold.
Hello, welcome to another episode of The Horror Vision. I'm Shawn.
I am Anthony.
And we are going to do a special episode today where we're going to attempt to not necessarily answer, but give you our opinion on kind of a big question in the comic book community right now. And that would be, are Something is Killing the Children and Department of Truth related? The impetus for this, so Anthony, you had been reading both actually longer than I just picked them up within the last couple of months, right? So you pretty much started with Department of Truth from #1, and you started with Something is Killing Children shortly after it began, I believe, right?
Bingo. So it's been a fun ride for both ever since it started. The quality is kept up, and the intensity of the storytelling has, maintained a momentum that has long since, or put it this way, it just hasn't been matched by a lot of other writers out there in recent years. But please go.
No, I would agree. I mean, I read a little bit of Tinian early on. He had a book called The Woods from Boom. I really liked it. And then it was about a high school that like just all of a sudden was displaced from where it was in our world into like this forest and some other place. And I really liked it at first. And then it kind of started to take what I thought was a little bit of a medieval. I just don't like Knights and Dragons. So as soon as I see that kind of stuff, I'm like, and I just stopped reading it. I sold my issues. And I knew he then started working with Batman. And when Something is Killing the Children came out, I remember holding the first issue in my hand and being like, I think I was probably trying to downsize what I was reading at the time. I didn't pick it up. And then there was so much hype around it that I kind of became suspicious. And then you had told me a couple times, like, no, it's good, man, it's good. And when I read it, I became a believer. And then I was reading House of Slaughter, the offshoot, and I remember texting you because I didn't know really much about Department of Truth. I know you had given me the basic premises, like, oh, this guy that's poached from the FBI and taken into this ultra secret Department of Truth, where the revelation is, so all these conspiracy theories, like if people believe, whatever people believe en masse dictates reality. So if you get enough people to believe in a Bigfoot, then you start getting Bigfoot walking around the woods. I mean, it goes a lot larger in scope than that, but I like the idea. I just kind of put it in the back of my head. But while I was reading House of Slaughter, it dawned on me, holy shit, the whole thing with Something is Killing the Children, right? What's the mechanism that creates the monsters in these books?
Well, it's imagination and thought and belief. So I mean,
Yes.
if at some point, you're sitting around a campfire with a bunch of picture this, 10 kids sitting around a campfire talking about an imaginary monster walking in the woods. They go out, after hearing that story, they're obviously spooked at night. this travels, and it spreads, and so on and so on and so on, and before you know it, you have a lake monster, and at some point in reality, you have something that manifests physically, and now all of a sudden this thing you've imagined is now walking the world and causing chaos or none at all, and it's out there, and it's up to said department and or house to eliminate whatever it is out there that's doing what it's doing. But I mean, if we're strictly talking Department of Truth, this is something that kind of starts as an inkling of like conspiracy theory that eventually gets a little more widespread, and you start to hear about, well, there's a cover up of it, and then obviously you have more people latching onto it because it's a cover up or what have you. So you have larger branches of people that believe that there is an ultimate force in either our government, law enforcement, or what have you, any overseeing power that is out to hide things from them and work against them. And before you know it, this idea has caught fire till it's now a tangible being that is now walking the earth. And again, it may be harmful, it may not be harmful, but they are out there. And from what I gather, how this works is once it does become a reality, and reality is now tipped in this direction, it also retroactively alters the past. So, and we'll get into this a little bit later on. It's really interesting to where it will alter the people involved. It'll alter the lives of people involved. It will alter the lives of, again, everything surrounding it, people that were researching, et cetera, et cetera. But again, like there are certain rules to how to retain a sense of, what can I say, consciousness throughout all of this, in order to, geez, it's so big.
It is. It's very big. So we are
stuffing.
We're stuffing something that, like, before we even rolled tape, we were both talking about how do we even like approach this. I have copious notes, but I stopped short of assembling it into like a outline or like a fucking murder board, because which maybe, I don't know, maybe we should have done. I'm not sure. So we have Something is Killing the Children / House of Slaughter, where you have the Order of St. George and their houses, House of Boucher, House of Slaughter, House of this, that, in different parts of the world that uphold the Order of St. George, which is to kill monsters. Also to keep monsters a secret so more people don't believe in them, because the more people that would believe in them, and they haven't really gotten into this. Now, this is Department of Truth kind of cross-referencing in my brain, but they don't want people to believe in this stuff, right? Because then the more people, the more monsters. And then you have Department of Truth, which operates exactly like you just described it. So we're not going to be like the other shows, or a lot of other shows that say, oh, here's the question that you want to hear answered, and we're going to talk for 50 minutes, and then at the end we're going to tell you what we think. We're going to tell you right up front. And what I mean by are these related is James Tynion writing both books where there is at some point most likely going to be crossover. So Anthony, do you think?
I will say yes. I think at some point there would have to be, and considering he kind of owns all rights to these works, I think it would be foolish to not do so. I think it would be in his best interest to provide the fan service. However, I do think that, yeah, I think it's all related, and I think he's given us a large enough umbrella to provide the space for these things to exist in the same world. So absolutely, I think so. I think they are related. Now, whether or not we ever see that, come alive through pages or not, I would really love to see it go there. I've also had a couple of other thoughts where I said, wait a minute, is this kind of a troll? Is he just figuring out a way to like give us something recycled? But I'd like to think he has a lot more respect for the readers who engage in his stuff, and especially in his brand, and know what he's about, and know what kind of service he's trying to provide. So I think in the overall grand scheme, I sincerely hope that these worlds are connected. And so, in my own personal belief, I think they are.
Yeah.
I think they are.
I will say, I told you a couple days ago, I did not think they were. I at first I thought they had to be. Then I read Department of Truth, and I reread Something is Killing Children and House of Slaughter, and then I reread Department of Truth. And up until a certain point in the second reading of Department of Truth, I told you, I don't think they are. And in my head, where I went was, so very famously in the 90s, Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon wrote a long and very seminal run of John Constantine Hellblazer. And one of the subplots in their run was an angel and a demon fucked and had offspring. When they were done with their Hellblazer run, very shortly thereafter, they started a book called Preacher. And the concept of Preacher is this preacher is bonded with the offspring of an angel and a demon that fucked, and it gives him the voice of God. So Ennis said all the time, they're not related. I came up with the concept when I was doing Hellblazer. I stopped doing Hellblazer. I liked the concept, and I took it and did something else with it. I think one of the reasons for that is because Hellblazer was tied to DC Vertigo continuity, and Preacher really was not. So I even wonder, like thinking about this now, if the reason why he wanted them distanced was because I own this property. I don't want it, in any way meshing with these other properties. Whatever. So I was thinking like that. I'm like, I think he just likes the concept. He tweaked it a little. He used it. However, I will tell you today, I think 100% they are connected. I think we will eventually see some cross-pollination. I don't know what that is. I don't know that I think it's going to be like, like a event or something like all the big two companies do, where it's like, their shared universe and the crossover. I don't think we're going to see that, but I definitely think at some point I could even see it being subtle, like somebody in the Order of St. George references a government contact, whatever. But I definitely think that the manifestations of monsters and the ingredients that activate them in Something is Killing the Children, that is a thin slice of the broader picture, which is the mechanism of Department of Truth, where human belief shapes reality.
This is true. So the next thing I want to talk about is the inner workings of the Department of Truth, and let's go in first by talking about some of the characters that staff the Department of Truth. One of them is colorful bunch. We start with a quote that I thought was just very cool, that happens within the first, before the end of the first issue of Department of Truth being over, where they bring in a man who's just assassinated a president. And to kind of make sure that he's on the right side, they kind of ask him for pretty much like his call letters, and he gives a quote that says, down is up and up is down, and introduced Lee Harvey Oswald, who is a patsy for the Department of Truth at this point. And this is like again, that in itself is just a mind-blowing thing, where you come into contact later down the line with this elderly, raggedy, aged Lee Harvey Oswald, who's taking on a new recruit named Cole Turner, who happens to work for he's FBI, he's a Fed, I remember.
And he basically just monitors conspiracy theory on like mostly alt-right white supremacist message boards, right?
Exactly. And as a member of those message boards, I'm kidding, I'm joking. No, I'm that was bad. Anyway,
No,
it's cool to see, how this guy kind of gets pulled in the deep end, and he has a handler named Ruby who you know very little about, and honestly, throughout the run of the books thus far, you don't really know anything about her. You don't know her last name. You don't know anything about her. There's no
yeah.
backstory to Ruby yet. So I'm still really excited to see where her story goes because she is an interesting character as far as like Cole's handler.
Also, it's interesting to note that we don't know, and we know more about a lot of the other people who you see less of, like Doc Hines, right? I feel like I know more about Frank, the millennial computer hacker chick. But I will say, how weird is it that Ruby seems to kind of be Lee Harvey Oswald's right hand man, right? But it's interesting that her name is Ruby because who shot Lee Harvey Oswald? Jack fucking
That'd
Ruby.
Be Jack Ruby.
I'm not saying she's Jack Ruby. I'm just saying it's an interesting, I mean, there's got to be intention behind that, in whether it means anything or it's just like a fun pun. I don't know. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
I also think that Jack Ruby is still alive today and is the owner and proprietor of Rubio's Baja Grill. But I could be wrong. I've often heard that I'm wrong. I've often heard I'm a fool. But I just take it to the message boards and let my people.
Is it the place that puts like Caesar salad dressing on tacos?
Yeah, it's not delicious by any means.
No, it's one of those weird California like white people trying to, oh, we can compete with the Mexican restaurants. Here's some Caesar. Anyway, whatever.
No,
okay, sorry.
They really can't. They really can't. Anyway. So I mean, we're pulling out a lot of threads here, and we just got into fish tacos. This is going to be a minute, so you guys buckle the fuck up. We get a couple other characters in here. We've got another man who is recruited, or actually reaches out to be sought out as a young man, a 17-year-old Doc Hines, who's a UFO enthusiast and is very concerned about the rise of sightings and what have you, and kind of fingers his way into getting involved down the line. And there's a handful of other characters. One of them, your favorite, if you'd like to introduce him, that'd be really awesome.
Dude, Hawk Harrison is, I mean, he's playing every fucking side, right? I mean, he wears a baseball cap with an inverted American flag. He smokes constantly, as do many of, like Oswald does too. But there's so many things about this. Like, obviously, it's my elevator pitch for this series to anybody is like it's Grant Morrison if he wrote the X-Files. That's what it feels like to me. There's X-Files, but then there's also so much old school Vertigo in it. Like there's a bunch of Invisibles and stuff like that. Like it just really feels old school Vertigo. Even the art obviously feels a lot like Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah, my take on him is kind of akin to I'm sure you've seen King of the Hill, Hank's buddy, the one that's conspiracy theorist that where
yes,
skinny guy always smoking.
Yes,
that's
geez,
him. That's him to me. So that's always been one of those characters that I absolutely adore just because of the mania going on inside.
Yeah,
but Hawk Harrison is introduced as a child during some research with Doc Hines and Lee Harvey Oswald, and you just see him.
Yes.
It's hilarious too because you meet him as like a 7-year-old boy who's just smoking a cigarette, foul mouth. It's hilarious.
You meet him when he's an adult, and you get to know him, and then they kind of drop that in as like a nice little. Like this is him as a kid. Okay, interesting to note. Hawk's father, who they don't name, but at one point, Oswald and Hines go to talk to him, was a former member of the I never know how to say this, the Agape Lodge. So he in the 50s in Pasadena, and this is like a whole man, John Jack Whiteside Parsons was the hand-picked by Aleister Crowley head of his temple, the Agape Lounge. Lodge, sorry, not lounge. Good Lord. And this man was a member of that. So he was present during a lot of the rituals that Parsons, and then later uh, uh, the fucking Scientology guy, L. Ron Hubbard was involved as well, but Parsons
Elrond,
was doing it.
Lord Elrond, Dark Lord Elrond.
Well, that's what the L stands for. But just interesting to note, and there is that moment when they meet the young Hawk, and I think it's Oswald says to him, "Your dad knows a lot of stuff. Get him to teach you, and then maybe we can." Because Hawk is steeped in magic, like big time, big time. He's the main like Grant Morrison character in my opinion. Anyway, sorry.
Well, he's the fixer. He's the one that shows up when there's a I'll use the term tulpa, which is something that's been brought into the tangible universe through these beliefs. He's the one that shows up to do the cleanup. He's the one that's got to go get rid of whatever's been manifested in order to tip the balances back in the favor of whomever is in power, who's and that's another thing we'll get on in just a moment. So it's really interesting because you don't know the full capacity of what this man can do, but at the same time, the guy's like cruising around in like Black Hawk, the quote unquote like what are they? Black Hawk helicopters with no numbers on them or no insignia on them. These are supposed to be like the government's like super secret blah blah blah, but it's him who's conjured all these things up or has run with the idea that somebody has concocted and just dabbled out just enough things through through his influence, which is vast. And we're talking media, we're talking news outlets, we're talking what is it, flashing imagery through news and through television and all these
and pornography,
wild things, and pornography to tip things in his favor, so that he has all these tools at his disposal by making you think they're out there. So by by you believing in enough of his bullshit that he's feeding you intentionally to give him the tools to get the job done, you also have to understand that you're being manipulated by him, which is something that he does around the people that he works closest to. And he's, folks are often warned, obviously, especially Cole Turner, don't get too close to him because, he's not who you think he is. He's not your best friend. And in fact, as the story progresses, we find out that Hawk's involvement in something very traumatic in Cole Turner's life, which has like utterly almost shattered him as a person. That comes to light, and but
100% created the person he is today that they recruit, right? So it's almost like they set that in motion when he was like 7 or 8 years old, so that they could then have the adult version. Like they basically grew this person that they needed from, just by manipulating his environment, which is insane.
And jumping back to Something Is Killing the Children, about how much belief do you actually have to manifest a monster? Because it seems like just a small group of children were able to manifest something so horrible, and something that spreads very quickly. Like I think most monsters' birth, it seems like in this world of Something Is Killing the Children, is female in nature and can then grow stronger as the rumor about it grows, and then it will eventually have offspring, and then that spreads in the tangible universe. But I'm curious because it seems like I'm sorry, what's the main kid's name from Something's Killing the Children? James. Young James. It seems like it was just him and maybe, just a handful of his buddies, because I guess he told this story a couple of times. And he told this story a couple of times, so a bunch of folks had already heard it at school. Because I remember there was another instance where somebody was at another sleepover and had heard the story.
Yeah, it
So
was like earlier that night, the sister or something like
yeah,
that.
the sister had heard the story elsewhere. Exactly. So whatever it is that he had created inadvertently, he had no idea, by just telling us a ghost story that this was going to happen. Not a ghost story necessarily, but a monster story that this was going to spread and manifest as something much larger than he could imagine. I have wondered, just going back and forth, how many, basically, what's the math on that, especially the math to create something as large as, say, a dragon. I don't know if there's how widespread the fear or mania has to go on in order to bring forth something so large. But I mean, I would imagine if it goes with my theory and you're controlling the masses through fear, then yeah, it would have to be something much, much larger, to create or concoct something that large.
This is the exact page and panel that convinced me that Something is Killing the Children and Department of Truth are related. So after we in the second volume, so we now know Lee Harvey Oswald, we know Ruby, we know Cole, we know that the adversaries of the Department of Truth currently are an organization called Black Hat. And Black Hat was apparently originally a Google competitor in the late 90s, early 2000s, where they were building the search engine or whatever. But what they ended up doing with all of this stuff, instead of being a search engine, is they used all this information they gathered with algorithms and then turned it around and they use it to create echo chambers on the internet that propagate what they want manifested. And I will say also, and this is something that you hear from Oswald, you hear from Cole, you hear from maybe not Hawk, but Ruby. Black Hat is manifesting things on a smaller scale, and they're not entirely sure how they're doing it. And eventually it's said that this is probably how they're doing it with these manipulation of social media algorithms and whatnot. But because tying into Something Is Killing the Children, so in Department of Truth, it takes a lot of people believing in something to manifest it, right? But there appears to be, and so why then in Something Killing the Children is it like, the first thing that we see in Something Is Killing the Children, the very first issue, it's one kid and four of his friends at a sleepover, and he's telling them about this monster that he saw in the woods. They don't believe him, and they coax him to go out to find it, and the monster kills all of them except the kid that originally told the story. So why, if these are related, why is it that 5 kids could manifest something? But it all goes down to this. So we meet Hawk and Cole and Darla, who is kind of a field operative. It's unclear whether she works under Hawk, because she's also kind of a fixer, and I get the impression that she's one of his people. She's related to Hunky, the big guy in the basement that's kind of like the computer specialist. They're out hunting a Bigfoot, and they're talking. A lot of the series is the characters kind of really disseminating a world history that Tinian has kind of stitched together from really impressive research. So they're talking about how this works and how reality works around a wild fiction. And so these are kind of wild fictions, I think, what we're dealing with in Something Is Killing the Children. And so we go, okay, reality work. This is quoted. I'm going to read directly from the book. Reality works a little different around a fiction. When you look at one, you're looking at something that doesn't quite exist. That's why you can't get a clear picture of them. Best you get is a blur, and even that is rare. They're weird to be around. You might get a sunburn in the middle of the night just by standing near them. And trying to move or think, forget it. You feel nauseous the second you set eyes on one. People have seizures. Not to put too fine a point on it, but they are mean fuckers. These aren't animals, they're thought forms. Walking nightmares, wrong things. Funny part is, when this all got started, the department didn't know jack shit about tulpas. They were killing Bigfoots because they were worried they'd start a panic. Darla, so then Cole asked, Darla, you were saying it used to be cleaner, but now it isn't? These days, you've got kids working themselves up on image boards all night, telling each other spooky shit that just keeps on spreading, like campfire stories read by millions. enough to manifest a few of them in the real world. But so that right there, you've got monsters or wild fictions, mean, bloodthirsty by their own admission here, entities manifesting. It's not as clean as it used to be because you've got people, look, we are going to see him do a Slender Man issue. I guarantee it, because Slender Man is that was the first urban legend that took that sizable momentum from the internet and from creepypastas and all that shit. But that's basically what they're talking about, and that's basically what the Order of St. George is dealing with in Something Is Killing the Children, are these thought forms. Why it takes that few people? Because I think that it's just in the background of the young mind because of the internet, right? So people just believe in this shit. There's another line, at some point early, I don't remember when this is, but it's in the 80s or something, and one of them says well, I mean, these kids all love this hockey mask killer and the guy that kills them with the razor knives in their sleep. So, they want to believe in these, their whole culture is about being scared. So I think that's the point where the two cross over. Cole is another example. What they do to him is the same thing. So what do they do, Anthony?
We start at the beginning.
Yeah. So he's 7 or 8 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, so he's 7 or 8, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, like you said, and he's which is funny because what is it? Also, what's the name of that place in Something's Killing the Children? The
Archer's
first place
Peak?
they end up at. Archer's Peak is also in Wisconsin. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the 80s. We have a very young Cole Turner. He's about 7 or 8 years old. He's in grade school. And he's being questioned by police and whatnot, and all these other high-ranking officials about what's happening in his schools, and he has these wild recollections of teachers taking him and other children down to secret rooms in the basements of their elementary schools and performing acts of satanic worship and cannibalism. And he is recounting these occurrences to law enforcement, and kind of blowing the whistle on all these teachers and schools doing this horrible stuff all over the country. And you see where this is going. This is not the beginning, but the strongest point in manifestation of satanic panic that's happening in the United States at the time. And it is to basically to find a way to keep America still at the forefront of stomping out the devil and staying on top as far as who's running shit, because this is coming off of the end of the Cold War. Which, again, a lot of threads here. So Cole is instrumental in this because he's the one that ends up going on television. He's the one that starts, singing to the newspapers and whatnot. And this is all brought on by his mother. His mother has kind of been approached by certain people. There's going to be book deals. There's probably going to be movies. There's probably going to be this. She sees dollar signs and is very okay with exploiting her child and having the world learn about, all the horrible things that happen to him. And obviously it can't just be this, group of people. There has to be something at the forefront of it that is the driving force or driving entity. And they've created this thing called the Star-Faced Man. And the Star-Faced Man is kind of the embodiment of the devil or a demon who has an inverted star scarred into its face, very, very akin to the Slender Man, very tall and lanky and, long fingernails and whatnot, very an oblong head that kind of fits the shape of the star. It's very weird looking. And he's the character that, has the children or the adults take bites of the children, tell them how to cook the children, tell them to drink the blood, all these other wild things. And I don't know if it ever goes into like molestation or anything like that. I think it's kind of like baby eating and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But this character is something that plagues Cole Turner throughout his life, having to go through like counseling and whatnot. He's able to kind of get his life back on track, and it gives him the purpose in life to say, okay, well, I want to go into law enforcement, and I want to go into this branch of the FBI so that I can research things like that are the panic or hysterias that take over the nation from time to time, and he wants to see what makes them tick, and why they are what they are, and then eventually he does and end up down a road finding out why and how what he was plagued by as a child was created, and how he was used as a pawn. Ultimately, you see that there's a scene where Hawk actually shows up to his home when he's a child to convince his mom, like, hey, you should do all these things, kind of stoke the fires. Cole's father has kind of been going behind his mother's back and getting him alternate counseling to ultimately have him see that none of these things actually happened. None of these things were real. A lot of it was just figments of his imagination, and to ultimately see the bigger picture about like how what he was coaxed to say and what things happened around him had horrible fallout on those around him, like his teacher committed suicide, and obviously all these people lost their jobs, et cetera, but he had already kind of like recanted his statement, and so he confronted Hawk about it when he was a child and said, you're full of shit, because I know it didn't actually happen, and I can see through what you've created, basically. And they end up having a rich and lovely relationship as adults later on down the line.
And it's funny that Cole doesn't remember that he was the one that was there. Like Hawk later brings him to his home when he tells him that, hey, I'm working for Black Hat.
Yeah.
And I was the one that showed up at your house. You called me a liar, and I told you all adults are liars. I coaxed your mother because we were trying to get, and the whole thing was, they even said, like, they were combing through all these children's testimonies before they approached before they approached Cole's mother. They needed something, like you said, there has to be a figurehead. Like if you picture like George Orwell's 1984, they have the Goldstein, right? They have to have a face for everybody to direct their suspicion, their paranoia. It makes it that much easier to manifest. And so when he sees this drawing, it's crude, and he says, this we can work with. So this kid here, I'm going to put images of this thing he drew in his Saturday morning cartoons. We're going to, get it so that the next time he draws it, it's a little bit more defined, and then we can roll with that. And so that's what ends up happening. And Cole realizes through that alternate counseling with his father, you mentioned, that he's being coaxed into doing this. And when he sees, exactly like you said, like he says at some point, I saw that people weren't careful with the things that they put out in the world and the way it affected the world and other people. I wanted to be sure I was helping to prevent that from ever happening to anyone else, because he obviously feels extremely responsible for his teacher killing herself, right? So he's very altruistically motivated. And I think that's going to end up eventually being like his strongest asset, and also something that everybody is just going to be able to exploit. Because what is altruism if you don't know what's real, right? It's like, I mean, just as a reader, like, do you feel like you have a definite idea of who the good guys are and the bad guys are between Black Hat and the Department of Truth? Because I do not.
I want to believe that Cole's on the right side. I want to believe that Lee is on the right side. But I mean, ultimately, when you look at the, roster of atrocities that they both concocted, and just, things they've done, I don't think anybody's clean. And I think Cole is now knee deep in that. and realizing that there may not be a right side, because ultimately whomever wins, that dictates whatever is, and it doesn't matter anyway at that point because it's already happened.
Yeah, because everything then folds back into that.
Which, okay, yeah, I want to give an example of that real quick, and it's a big one. They need something to kind of recaptivate America again, and keep in mind when they do these things, when they create these ideas and notions that they put out into the world, it will continue to let them have sway and influence on society by keeping people glued to their televisions for, hidden messages and whatnot to keep people under their influence. So the big one in here, and it's a conspiracy theory that I've always found hilarious, which was the faking of the moon landing.
Yes.
Which is, folks believe that Stanley Kubrick actually was the one who shot the moon landing footage, and it was all fake. And there's still a large populace to this day in our current reality that you and I live in, that believe that think the moon, that we've never been to the moon, and that it's none of it's real. And so they utilize this, and so they're sitting down and they're having a conversation with Nixon about how they can kind of get things back in line. And they bring up the idea of a moon landing. It's like, can we even do that? Because it doesn't matter. As long as we can convince enough people that it did happen. Once that reality shift happens, it'll retroactively fix, all the technical issues and to work itself forward. So even though we didn't have the technology to go to the moon or anything, and this is what I thought was hysterical about it, it was like, it doesn't matter. As soon as we have enough people to believe that it is, once it tips, we're going to have all the tech and all the engineering and all the equipment and everything that we can, so that we can make it possible now, because it's manifested itself in that way. Which
they even say,
really,
like, all
really
the math
cool.
that we can't crack will just automatically be cracked. Like it's such a crazy concept. I love it.
And then also the idea that there are now alternate histories. There are alternate histories that the public doesn't know about. And the only way to, and I brought this up earlier, to preserve one's consciousness throughout the changes, is to keep records of what had actually happened in a place that is created in the tangible world that isn't real.
Yes, a tulpa, basically.
So again,
we're
a tulpa. Yeah, so we're going to end up going back to another place, which is supposed to be the Denver airport. The Denver airport that we believe had basically blipped off the face of the earth and then showed up somewhere else, and now this place still exists for some reason, and that there's a secret black hat base underneath, where they're able to do something similar and keep records and whatnot of everything that's going on back and forth between alternate realities. And the Department of Truth also has one of their own that they keep in the basement of Fort Knox, apparently, because they the overall consensus is that Fort Knox is the most heavily guarded place on earth. You can't get in or out, what have you.
So it is.
So this is the best place to keep all these secrets.
Yeah.
And so it is. So this is where they keep their records of the alternate universes. However, like you said, it's a tulpa. So when people go into this place, you're getting bloody noses, you're getting blurred vision, you're getting the bleeding eyes. That's great too when that stuff happens. And then when you get too close to these things and you start bleeding from your eyes.
Yeah, your body's telling you, like Ruby says, your body's telling you not to look at it or to get away from it or to not go there.
Exactly. But in order to keep a consciousness and keep yourself from, changing to whatever the universe has been shifted to, you have to keep a record of the past of what you had going on currently in one of these places, in one of these tulpas, because it's the only way that you're able to keep your, I guess, your consciousness and life continuing. It's a very bizarre concept, honestly, to where you have to keep this thing hidden. And this is why they have multiple archives. So you start to wonder whether or not, we're like their library at the Department of Truth is one of these tulpas or not. But clearly, I don't think it is, just because, like when they stuck Lee in there before, he wasn't getting sick like everybody else does when they get close to them.
Although, could that be because he's a tulpa? Because there's that question
Well,
as well.
That instance is really interesting when Hawk brings that revelation to Cole, which is why he kind of went turncoat, because he doesn't believe Lee is a human being. He believes he is a tulpa. He believes he is manifested so strongly that he doesn't have these characteristics of the other tulpa, like the Sasquatch or what have you, or Mothman, another great fucking addition to this thing.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where he doesn't trust him, obviously, because he believes he's something manifested by something else. So I'm curious as to what that is, because I don't know who's over Lee.
Well, okay, so a couple things I want to comment. First of all, directly this here, where you would, if the world changes, would it change any individual like you? So in this case, Doc Hines is talking about in the I think it's the 3 issues or 2 or 3 issues where they're dealing with the Mothman, and it's so basically before Lee is director, and this goes into the director of the Department of Truth from its inception is Frank Capra. Now, Frank Capra was, and I love this. He was a filmmaker in Hollywood. He wrote It's a Wonderful Life. He wrote Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. He basically told the tale. Like, that's what post-World War II America, that was the idea that they were trying to carry. And so what better person to have than the guy that wrote these movies that essentially like distill what they want America to be, this like apple pie and Americana and 2.5 kids, white picket fence, everybody loves one another. You get a good job, you work for the company, they take care of you. All the stuff we know like fizzle out really quick. But he's the one in charge, and so Lee is under him, and so Lee and Hines end up, they want to create a UFO and catch it. So they accidentally fuck this up by creating the Mothman, by issuing reports in the media of strange flying lights, and it takes on a life of its own the way people pass it around, and it gets retold, and you create a Mothman. But as this is happening, they're actually becoming the Men in Black by going and interacting with people. And so they actually manifest that. And one of the things Doc Hines realizes is he's very uncomfortable, because if they are not careful, and he sees Lee is not careful, he wants what he wants, and he doesn't really give a shit about who it hurts or what the ramifications are, wide reaching. He's afraid, Doc Hines is afraid he's actually going to become one of these Men in Black, these like insidious, sinister forces. So he knows inherently, like, if this reaches a tipping point, I will retroactively not be this person thinking these thoughts right now. I'll still be Doc Hines, but I will have completely different motivation, because reality will change and I will change with it backwards. That is like, man, that's fascinating. I mean, wow. Just wow. And I gotta wonder.
And terrifying to think. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Terrifying.
No, just and terrifying to consider, to consider, even though you're just finding this out. How many times has it happened before and you just don't know?
So this plays back into something is killing the children. So first of all, we don't know. So I get the impression, and I can't give you I've been so saturated now in this reread of Department of Truth, that now I'm a little fuzzy on some of the stuff, and I don't think there's any direct mention of it, but what is the genesis of, like, I almost feel like the way Black Hat is creating these wild fictions and manifesting this stuff, the way that in Something is Killing the Children, the Order of St. George is the one fighting it. I also almost wonder, are they in some ways responsible for creating it? Like, I'm wondering if it's a snake eating its own tail because of the way that they're so. They also mention having, what is it the Azure masks are the ones that infiltrate government and police and law enforcement and the media and help keep their secret, right? And we see in Something is Killing the Children the exact, like, Erica Slaughter wants to kill monsters and save children, and she is willing to tell people, whoever she has to, you can't do this. This is why I'm here. Like, she does, it's not her MO. She's not going to roll in town and be like, hey, everybody, I'm here to kill monsters. But she's consistently put in situations where she has to tell people things that she's not supposed to tell based on the protocols of the House of Slaughter. And what we see is the House of Slaughter will kill an entire fucking town. No question, no problem. Many of them will revel in it just to keep the secret, and they can they're as your masks can doctor it to be whatever. Oh, there's an explosion or whatever. They can fix it on a higher level. Yeah. So this really feels a lot like what we're getting into with elements of Black Hat and the Department of Truth, where it's like, I mean, the one force. So there's Black Hat. Before Black Hat, like you said, this kind of comes out of the end of the Cold War. So this technology, this information gets to America and the Russians at the same time, because when they raid Hitler's bunker, where they find Eva Braun and Hitler dead and burn the bodies, they find information that goes back to like thousands of years, and they realize all, like, the ancient Rome, the Catholic Church, Britain, everybody, there were always elements of the master societies in the world of civilization that knew these secrets, that belief dictates reality. And so they manipulate it. Hitler got his hands on it. I don't think they really tell us how. And then once the Nazis are smashed, because that's what they were trying to do, it goes to the States and it goes to Russia at the same time because of espionage, right? So you have then, this is the conflict. You have the Ministry of Lies is the Department of Truth's counterpart. And it is also, so where Frank Capra is the fucking head, this film writer, right? The head of the Ministry of Lies at the same time is, I'm not going to be able to fucking pronounce this, Dziga Vertov, who is a fucking Russian filmmaker at the same time. And I don't know his movies. The little bit of research I did on this, because it just dawned on me today when I was reading, I was like, wait a minute. Is this guy a real guy? And he is. But it seems like he's the Russian counterpart to Frank Capra. So Frank Capra is crafting the soul of America in motion pictures and peddling it to people. Oh, this is what we are, So that is what Dziga Vertov is doing. And so you have two story makers running these departments that are using fiction and belief to manipulate reality. Beautiful. So we have this information that goes back that far. So it goes back at least as far as St. George, further, right? So I'm really wondering because think about religion, right? So I don't want to offend anybody out there, but here's what I think. Christianity was the most successful Nike swoosh symbol. Like, the cross is the most successful swoosh symbol. It is, people in power were like, how do we control the people beneath us in society? Well, we can beat them and kill them and do this. Well, but once they're no longer afraid of that because, okay, you're going to kill me, whatever, I've accepted that. Well, we tell them we know what happens when they die. And then that will keep them in line. And that's what the church does, right? I'm not saying, whatever. I'm not trashing religion.
Preach,
I'm just
brother.
saying, well,
Preach, brother, I'll trash religion in a minute.
So the whole idea of Satan, hell, the devil, this is all, and Hawk goes into this at some point. It's all constructs to control people. Like, they just they introduce Christianity to bring all this stuff together as they're conquering the known world. And they use the old pagan religions. They make it the outlaw. They use some of the things like the dates of their Sabbaths and whatnot. But for the most part, they use Satan and hell to control people. Say, they'll get you. Well, isn't that what the Order of St. George is doing in a way where, like, if you go back to St. George and the Dragon, is this maybe just the same exact methodology that we're seeing in Department of Truth through the ages and we're learning has controlled the world, where it's like, this dragon is here, I will show up and defeat it, I save you, but this is out there, so now you should follow me. And then there you go. Like, this echoes down through the ages until you have, this offshoot of the church to some degree, the Order of St. George, that is, showing up and controlling people and killing monsters. Yes, but that's not their primary motivation. That's Erica's. It's not theirs. So I don't know. We're getting in the weeds here. It gets harder and harder to like suss this out.
I want to touch on this. So I believe that the Order of St. George, who was the controlling religious organization at the time, was using fear to create these monsters that they would then slay to give off the illusion of them being saviors and whatnot, and it backfired on them. So now we have the belief of monsters in the world that are no longer isolated to one area where it can be handled by the Order of St. George, and now it's a widespread thing happening all over the world, thus the many houses of the Order of St. George. And now they are kind of damned. They've kind of damned themselves in a way to perpetually have to fight these monsters now and continue on this belief system and these tenets and these rituals that are basically just built on lies. I think that's where the Order of St. George is today, and that's why it's crumbling, because there's so many young hunters in here that are starting to see through the visage and really look at what's happening beyond that, and how the overall theme of control is still ever present, but does it have to be? So I think it's quote unquote a monster that they've created for themselves that is now rampant. And again, I think they're damned because of what they've done. But that's just my theory on the Order of St. George.
Dude, I think you're spot fucking on. Like, that is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
It's interesting. So when you've got the Cold War, and then you've got where you have these two organizations, right? The Russians and the Ministry of Lies and the Americans Department of Truth, trying to figure out what the world is going to be. And eventually America wins by kind of doing the dirty, like everybody kind of like, you really shouldn't have done that. Like the whole thing with the moon landing, where you fake the moon landing, it makes it real. You didn't fake it anymore. Because you faked it, it becomes real. You didn't fake it. So then the Cold War ends. So now Black Hat shows up to balance it out and be the bad guy. Even though when Martin Barker, the head of Black Hat, is talking, he doesn't sound like a bad guy. Although he does lie. So, the first time Cole encounters him and he tries to sway him to work for him, he doesn't lie. But then there's a later part, and it's not him talking to Cole. I forget. Oh, it's talking to
Maddie.
Maddie, he lies. He totally 100% lies about what Cole's involvement in certain things, and like he just spins it a certain way, but it is a fabrication. Now, so if those are the two forces, there is one force that has been present as far back as like in volume 3, where Capra first brings him into the archives and says, you can't be seen out. It's right after Kennedy's assassination. He's like, you're the most recognizable man in the world. You cannot be outside right now. You're going to spend 6 months here reading every book in this archive. And the first book is the Apocrypha of the Department of Truth, and it tells a story in 1000 AD. And there is a character present there that is present all through history, and that is the Scarlet Woman, the horror. Whether it is the actual Scarlet Woman, Horror of Babylon, that's what Crowley called her. That's what Jack Parsons called her. And we don't know what she is, right? But she's always there. There's talk, is she the actual devil? Like, nobody knows. So I submit to you that I think what we're seeing here is, because I think she is a fictional person. I don't even know if I can put this in the words. I have this in my head, but it's such an abstract fucking concept. But I think that she is an abstract concept. Yeah, exactly. But I think she is an abstract concept. Like, if you listen to Crowley talk about the Horror of Babylon, the Scarlet Woman, it's an idea. So the idea that, like, gods are the way that humans can comprehend and manipulate ideas way bigger than themselves. So, anger, just off the top of my head, you have I don't know whoever the fucking angry god is. I don't know, whatever. The titanic forces of the ocean, Neptune, speed, Hermes, or information, So I think she's an abstract concept, but that has, I don't know if it's like from a different dimension or a different plane of reality, but I think she's trying to undermine this reality and make it a completely fictional reality, which I almost could see here, where, like, famously, did you ever read Grant Morrison's Animal Man run in the 80s?
I did not.
So there's a point in Animal Man where Animal Man shows up at a house and the door opens and it's Grant Morrison. And he's like, "Oh, I write your comic book. Come in." And Animal Man's like, "What?" And he goes in and sits down, and Grant Morrison tells him, like, "No, you're like a character. I write you. Like, I'm sorry that I killed your wife and your children and this and that, but the story dictated." And I mean, when I first read it way back, I mean, nobody had done that in a comic book before. Morrison really was instrumental in changing things. Now it's pretty common. Deadpool breaks the fucking fourth wall, all that shit, right? But that was like, whoa, what the fuck is this? This is crazy. He actually did it before that too, in a Zoids comic book, where you saw at the end of it, like, a kid's hand come down, pick up the Zoid, and you realize everything you were reading was like a kid playing with toys. But and Stephen King did it in the Dark Tower series. There's a point where the characters are traveling between different realities, and they end up seeing a younger alcoholic Stephen King, and he's talking about, like, and then Salem's Lot is this book that they carry with them back to their world, and they meet a character from it. And I remember reading that thinking, like, Stephen King's been reading Grant Morrison. That's kind of cool. But I almost wonder if, I don't feel like this. Tinian obviously is very influenced by the Vertigo guys, especially Grant Morrison. I almost wonder if there's, like, an element that could come into play. I almost kind of hope it doesn't, but where she is some kind of manifestation from our, or Tinian's, reality. You know what I mean? Like, it's this, like, Deus Ex Machina, like she is the god in the machine that's manipulating people because he's writing her to do that. Like, because what is her end game? The issue where you see the moon landing become real, it pans out and she's standing on the moon, and then she holds her hand up and you can see she's, like, cradling the earth in her hand. And it's like a massive concept that they're distilling down to a perceivable form. And I'm like, are we breaking the fourth wall here? Is this, like, is she Tinian? I don't know, man. Because she is obviously extremely important, and nobody knows who she is. Even the characters that, like, I don't think Martin Barker, she's by his side in the first issue, right? And she always says what she always say. It's important that you see. She says it to Cole at the ice wall when he's with the Flat Earthers in the very first issue of Department of Truth. Then you find out.
She says it to Lee.
She said to Lee, but here's the thing. How so you don't really like they dance around this idea. Did Lee actually shoot the president? Like what exactly happened? So they put the gun in the window. That's all they did. And then there's a scene where you see that Lee is watching her as she shoots the president, and she turns to him and says, it's important that you see. So they manifested her by putting that gun in the window.
They hint at it a couple of times where they believe that the end goal is the end of the world. So we tend to picture her as something mythological along the lines of like an agent of chaos, or you know, Pandora, even, you know, with her box now open. That sounded perverse, and I apologize to my listeners.
I liked it,
but this is her way of being able to keep a hand in both sides of the game in order to reach her ultimate goal, which is, from what I gather, is the end of the world. Her reasons for doing so, I have no idea, and there are talks about how she may be the embodiment of the literal devil, but then again, that goes back and forth and is kind of dispelled because gods and devils and whatnot are, like you said before, they're just constructs made by man in order to tip balances. So it's not real. So what she is, I honestly have no idea. I think she's a great character. I think she's really interesting. And she's known as the woman that has no eyes but sees everything, knows everything. Geez, it's actually very haunting because she looks like a like 40s style pinup gal with big dark shades, but her eyes are crossed out. I'm sure readers or anybody who has gone to the shops in recent years have seen this imagery. I still don't know what her ultimate end game is, but I tend to agree with you. I don't think she's a separate entity. I think she is a construct herself. But you talk about the history where she's involved going back so far, but again, we talk also about how many times has history been changed. So I mean, history could have been changed 5 minutes ago, and now this character has existed all throughout time itself. So there's no way to know. And I think, and again, that goes back to the fear Doc Hines had about losing his sense of self and consciousness, and ending up becoming something that he's terrified of. And God, there's it's too big, man.
It's huge.
It's too big for my brain at times.
Dude, it's huge.
Far too big for my. How do you end this?
So Alan Moore and J.H. Williams III did a book called Promethea that went, it was in, I think it was the late 90s, early 2000. It went, I want to say roughly 30 issues, but this book was like Moore's dissertation on the occult. I mean, it is, as far as I'm concerned, you got the Goetia, you've got magic in theory and practice, you've got Liber Null, what's the other one? Whatever. The Phil Hines stuff, the Peter J. Carroll stuff, and you've got Grant Morrison's The Invisibles, and you've got Alan Moore's Promethea. And the whole thing with Promethea is in his fictional universe, which was, I forget what it was called, like it was an offshoot of Top Cow or one of them. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He had Tom Strong and a couple other comics that were all intertwined. She ended up being, she was like a superhero, kind of like a Wonder Woman-ish thing, but didn't suck. She ended up being the Scarlet Woman, and she ushered in the apocalypse that ended the entire line of comics. And it was, I mean, it was like, what the fuck? Because that is what the Scarlet Woman does. And this is, man, okay, so there is a working occultist named Donald Tyson. This guy, he's incredible. But he has, so I'm going to just consult real quick. So there was a company called Disinformation. I don't know if they still exist or not. Late 90s, early 2000s. And they put out just some unbelievable compendiums of occult and alternative thinking. And the best one is this Book of Lies, The Disinformation Guide to Magic and the Occult. I was really into the occult. I'm not going to say I'm not into it anymore, but the thing is, like, it's like anything else. When you get into this, and you at some point, I realized, like, I'm just buying books. People are just writing. I'm like, I know I need. So I kind of wanted to make my life its own working. And I kicked it off by moving away from everything I knew. But so there's an essay he wrote called The Enochian Apocalypse. And the idea of this, and they mention this, so the Babylon working. So when Hines and a younger Lee Harvey Oswald go and they talk to the man that ends up being Hawk Harrison's father, who was a member of the Agape Lodge and worked with Jack Parsons and knew about the Babylon working. The Babylon working was Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard in the desert trying to summon the Scarlet Woman.
Just beautifully illustrated.
Yeah. In 1900, Crowley tried and failed. And in 1909, he tried again. The first time, I don't remember if he was alone or who he was with. Second time, Victor Newberg was with him. They were in Algeria. They went out into the desert, and there's 49 calls. So the Enochian, oh man, this goes back. In Elizabethan England, there was a man, John Dee. John Dee was a astrologer, a chemist, espionage, a cartographer, a scientist, and an occultist, although he wouldn't have identified that way because he would have been hung. But he worked with a man named Edward Kelly, and they scryed, and they contacted something that identified themselves as angels and gave them 49 keys or calls, and these are rituals. And they performed some of them, and then the relationship dissolved. There were political and all these whatever. It just never happened. Crowley did them in the desert. And so Tyson, in the Enochian Apocalypse essay, which you can find very easily online, and if I think about it, I'll put a link in the show notes on this. I always say that, and I never put links in the show notes. I'll try to fucking remember. Basically says, if you look at what immediately follows Crowley and Newberg performing this ritual in 1909, you get, okay, World War I, which then breeds World War II, which changes everything. And this essay terrifies me, and it runs right in, like, Tinian touches on this he's talked about Parsons and the Babylon working, but he has not talked, and he's talked about Crowley, but he's not exactly touched on this idea. And this idea is very parallel to what he's outlining. And it's, what if when they did this, they opened something? And the idea is, these things said they were angels and that they were giving these keys to these men for the benefit of mankind. Tyson doesn't think that's the case. He thinks they were tricking mankind or humanity into undoing itself, and that there are 4 watchtowers that guard the world from chaos. And by doing this, they opened the door, even if just a crack, and this stuff got through. And then Tyson's thing is, the apocalypse isn't what people think of from the Bible. So it's like, if you look at the world, like, what the fuck makes somebody walk into a shopping mall and just start shooting everybody they see? I don't know. Maybe these things got through and they are influencing us to this day. Maybe that's the thing why everybody says, like, after Kennedy, the world changed. After he died, after he was killed, the world changed. Everybody, like, if you polled 1,000 people that are our parents' age, I don't think more than 1% of those people would say anything other than, yes, the world changed after that happened. And it really makes you think about the things that we're getting into in the Department of Truth, where it's like, all of it, like, humanity, really, we're just blindly trucking along. They talk about this in there's an episode or an issue where Oswald before he's director, he leaves and he's in Haight Ashbury and he's fucking getting high, banging this chick, and she turns out to be. So the government during MK Ultra, what they did was they were really interested in this is like the men that stare at goats and that shit, right? So they would hire prostitutes or have agents that would go out and pick men up and seduce them and fuck them and also dose them with massive benzodiazepine. I'm not saying that properly, or LSD, or all these hallucinogens to see what it did to them, because they were studying how can we use this to our advantage during like the Cold War, right? Can we get people hopped up on acid to stare at another soldier and have their head explode? But she basically because the conversation becomes philosophical, and she's the one that ends up giving him the idea, not directly, but like she says, make the world that you want and then live in it, and that's where he gets the idea for the moon landing. But she basically says like, not America's not real, it's an idea. Like, we're not even living in anything that's real. Everything is a thought form. Like, it's just like this, the whole concept of the country, none of it, it's not real. And that's 100% like none of it's real. I mean, Grant Morrison has pointed out, you want to see magic, like get sent to court and have a judge stand up, bang a gavel, and take your life away from you for the next 20 years. It's fucking magic. Like, I mean, there's no doubt about it, but it's just magic that we see all the time. And they say in the book of Slaughter, like the best way to hide something is to put it right in front of everybody's face and they don't see it anymore. So I don't know. Sorry, that was my fucking complete occult rant, but man,
it lends credibility to what we're doing here today.
Nothing's revved me up like this in a while as far as comic books go. I mean, this is just something else. And I love that we're getting Something is Killing the Children, which is a very localized action drama kind of focused. And then you've got Department of Truth, which is just, I mean, this dissertation on reality, essentially.
There's some horrifying bits of reality in there also. One of the ones that I found to be probably the most jarring is when they send out a field team to go investigate a woman who has been, let's paint the picture. Her son is killed in a school shooting, and she's grieving, she's in mourning, and she's somehow found her way onto the message boards, and she's starting to interact with people that believe that this is a quote unquote false flag, that this never happened, that the they basically had what are they called, something
crisis
victims, I can't remember
actors.
what they called them, but they have these folks come out and crisis actors, this is correct, yeah, crisis actors, to come out and convey that this horrible thing has happened, but it actually hasn't. Now, she has the proof because her son is passed away, but through this like intense grieving process, she's found these message boards where people believe that, again, it was falsified, it never happened, and in that she's finding some solace in the idea that her son is still out there, that her son is still living. But then in that, in tugging at that thread, it's like, well, now where is he? And so now she's going deeper into the web and finding these people that are saying, no, this is what's going on. They're on Pedo Island and they're being sex trafficked by Democrats and all this other wild shit. And she's kind of starting to buy into it. But like, what's a more horrifying reality? The one where your child was murdered, or the one where your child is still alive being sex trafficked? And that there are people out there that can will that into existence, and she's struggling with that, but she's starting to believe it, unfortunately, just in hope that she'll have a chance to see her kid again. But Ruby and Cole, they kind of ransack her apartment one night and they take away all her stuff, because doesn't she come up with the proof? I believe she comes kind of close to the proof that this is where it's gone, and they just take everything away from her so that she sounds, to discredit her.
This is the interesting thing about that. So I made a note. This is the third issue of the series of Department of Truth, and it is one of the best. I mean, because it is such. I mean, it's clearly Sandy Hook, right? Clearly, they don't
Oh,
say it, but
absolutely,
that's what it is.
absolutely.
But so
Or
there's a thing
Columbine, what
here.
have you? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a thing here where they say that um she gets a taste. So first she's in the message boards, and then she starts participating in the message boards, and then this idea takes root, like you said, that her son might still be alive, and so that kind of starts to seduce her into participating in the message boards. And even though she knows her son was killed, she has a recording on her phone, her voicemail, and she starts to think that maybe there's something here, and then she gets a tape, and on the tape it's her and her son, and she's saying, oh, he can do it again, like as if they're being directed. He can do it better this time.
Yeah.
And the idea is that maybe the message was the proof they needed her to have in order to make it real. So this demonstrates, I posit, how one person can be a fulcrum point on a smaller scale, and reality then like unfolds from that. Because that's one person, although the belief of all these message boards, but it's almost like coal, right? Like becomes this fulcrum. So if enough people believe she lied, it makes her believe she lied, which activates Black Hat to be able to make the video. But does the video mean there is a second mother and son? Or did the video manifest like backwards in time? So in other words, her son really did die, but now because this belief has taken root, it's what you talked about. It's reshaped everything backwards, and no, he didn't die. So I think Cole and Ruby get in right when they're on the cusp of that happening, and they stop it.
It's ugly.
It is.
Jesus, it's ugly. It's really fucking ugly.
But it's our world.
This is true. And I kind of take this if you're okay with jumping over to something that's killing the children for a bit, we can talk about a couple characters over there and kind of see what's going on in that universe. So we've got the Order of St. George, and they have created the houses. There's the first of all, little disclaimer here. We had set out to do this episode probably about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of us talking about it, the Book of Slaughter was released, and our original intention was to discuss all the inner workings of Something Is Killing the Children and the universe they're in. And this book fucking outlined everything.
Yeah, I read that. I was like, well, there goes the episode.
It was like, son of a bitch. So yeah, for those in the know who have read it, we tried to beat Tinian to the punch, but he must have had his people in the weeds listening to us. And said, okay, I'll thwart these sons of bitches, and that's okay, Tinian. I mean, we kiss your ass a lot on here, but we'll get you one day. We'll get you. But is there a character Erica's the main one for me. Is there a character in here that speaks to you or provides an extra amount of depth to what's actually going on in this world that they have?
I mean, I feel like you get a little bit from different people. Like Erica is the driving force. She's obviously like, my favorite character, the best, like everybody. There's a reason for that, I feel like. But as far as like clarification, it comes in little bits. You get little snippets of Aaron. When we go over to the House of Slaughter series, you get Butcher, right? And I think he's going to be, we've talked about this, I think he's going to end up being important, but you get a little bit more window into the house and the dragon of House of Slaughter through him and his kind of agenda, what happens in his story in House of Slaughter. And then Maxine, it really, the Book of Slaughter, the one shot that basically gives you all of this stuff, the inner workings, the masks and the protocol and all that, like we get that through Maxine. So she's now being set up to be a huge character. And I think House of Slaughter is essentially going to continue giving you arcs that maybe show you, like, I think that there's the kid with no arms. I forget what color mask he is.
I believe he's a white mask. Yeah, he's a white mask.
We get his story, or some of the other disparate characters. You like the redheaded twins. We'll get their story, maybe
Yeah.
not. But I think
Yeah.
that's just what that's going to be, that series. So I'm like, I think we both said we're like a little bit less interested. I'm interested in Butcher, but I think Butcher's going to cross over.
Yeah, more than likely. More than likely.
More than likely. But yeah, I mean, really, the book of Slaughter was what really. Before that, I mean, you only got little bits and pieces, little glimpses of the protocol and the whole layout of the Order of St. George, and that one shot really like solidified a lot of stuff.
I said this before in a conversation with you in regards to Snyder's Witches, where I feel like that was almost a prototype to what Something is Killing the Children was to become. And I really do wish that that series had continued, because he had a world set up very similarly. However, the monsters in that world weren't manifested; they just were. They just always were. They're an ancient evil, and they just have always been. And they had their own order that hunted these things called the Irons, and they hunted witches throughout the ages and whatnot. And much like the Order of St. George, they would show up wherever they were, eradicate them and anybody affiliated with them, because majority of time anybody affiliated with them were people that were using them for tinctures and whatnot in order to do well in their own lives at the behest of having at the behest of everybody else around them, including close family. Because in the end, the people themselves were probably the worst monsters, just because they wanted to use these ancient entities to do whatever it is that they wanted to do. But I like how in this series, in Something's Killing the Children, that we're able to kind of see that there's a greater good behind it all. And like I said, I hope my earlier theory that I talked about using fear and whatnot and then kind of damning themselves isn't true, because I like the idea of there being a group of heroes in the shadows. Any kid who's a fan of Batman will tell you that that's out there with your best interests and is literally out there to take a hurt to the bad guys and save the little ones. But that's I think clearly all that stuff is starting to falter now.
But I think we are going to get that, though. I think that's what Erica's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's where Erica's going. I think that's where Butcher is going, because that's a trait that he's already exhibited. I did read the latest issue last night.
Latest issue of House of Slaughter?
Yes.
Okay.
And he had two totems. I was like, where the hell did he get a second totem from? Because he has his own, which is like a little red fox doll. And then he had an owl, and I was like, wait a minute, that's Aaron's. So he's got both of these monsters, helping them out and keeping, whatever's around at bay, so that he can protect the kids that he's protecting, or that are in his care.
Yeah.
And one of the last things he does is ask the owl, check your tether, so that he's able to keep tabs on Aaron. So eventually, and this hasn't happened yet in the books, but it's going to be obvious that he's going to ask him to check his tether, and he's going to tell him Aaron's dead, and it's going to go on from there.
Oh, because he doesn't know. That's right.
He has no idea what's going on right now. So Aaron, if for those that have read the series, Aaron's dead by the end of issue 10. He's a really interesting character. They bring him in, very snazzy, well-dressed guy, very, very knowledgeable. Not a great warrior by any means, but for some reason is a black mask that just doesn't do what masks are supposed to do.
Yeah.
And he bites it hard.
Yeah.
But so this is supposed to, bring Butcher back to the fold now, because everybody who has, read up to this point, and I mean, we're going full spoiler here anyway, because pretty much all we've been doing with both stories right now. He's basically given his hand to to Aaron as like a trophy to give back to the dragon that, hey, I killed this guy and you don't have to worry about him anymore, because at one point Butcher had made an attempt on the dragon's life and ended up having to go into hiding. So yeah, I think it might be one of those things where we see Butcher come back. He may team up with Erica. He may team up with Maxine. They might create something better, or a rival house to go against the status quo of what's happening within the ranks of the current house, which is interesting because in the Book of Slaughter they tell you, once you have your own house, you're actually able to run it and create your own rules and regulations, but you still have to follow like the certain sacraments and tenets that they have throughout the entire organization. But you do have a way of running things on your own that you're able to do. So I wonder if they want to create, I don't know, maybe a more peace loving.
Well, I think they see that. I think your theory was correct, and that this was an element of control through fear that got out of hand, and so they had to develop this organization. And they're not really the heroes waiting in the shadows. I mean, they kind of are, but they're the heroes waiting in the shadows that will also cut your fucking throat. So thereby, they're not really heroes. So I think that's where I think Erica and Butcher are both geared more towards fuck what this the Order of St. George is doing. We're going to do it the right way. So I think that, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Because a clear case of how it's being done wrong is what's going on in the current episode issues with Cutter. So they haven't been able to. So Erica's gone rogue. She's being fed information by Gary, the head of the Azure Masks, as far as like how to keep hunting in the field. She doesn't have the help she wants to. She doesn't have the financial stability or anything like that. So she's having to kind of really work off the grid and occasionally get tabs from Gary on where to go next to continue to help people, because Gary wants this also, and Gary is eventually found out. Since she's gone rogue, obviously the one thing they want to do is eliminate her. So they end up reaching out to another house. The House of Cutter in England have sent over a black mask of their own named Charlotte Cutter. So she's shown up, and she's a black mask that's there to hunt Erica and, to create this new rivalry between the two of them. And this chick is brutal in fashion and does not care who she kills, how they're dispatched, as long as, the ends, just as long as she gets what she needs.
Have you read the newest issue of Something's Killing the Children yet?
Yes, I have. I did. I read that last night, actually.
So it was interesting to hear the dragon of the House of Slaughter basically say, well, either way, if Cutter wins, then our Erica problem is solved. If Erica kills Cutter, Cutter's obviously a problem, so we'll just welcome her back. And then what's her name? I get the, oh man, yeah. She basically says, wait, so you take Erica back? And he's like, well, I mean, yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting that it set up, I don't know, man. Now I'm like, wait, what was the agenda in bringing Cutter in to begin with?
I guess whatever's benefits the overall needs of the Order of St. George, because one of them needs to die, or both need to die. Which is interesting now, because you have the dragon saying, I would welcome Erica back, and then she could take a seat at the table because she needs to be there because we don't have any more black masks. She has to sit at the table, basically. Where you have Cecilia saying, I'll never sit at the same table with her. Which I don't fully understand the reasoning behind it. I don't get the hatred and animosity between the two of them. But I mean, I also do understand that, she just got her best friend growing up in the house killed. She got Gary killed gruesomely at that.
Yeah.
And, like, she's not only is she a liability toward people in the outside world, but also in the house as well. She's endangered the lives of a lot of people, and it's shown because they allowed Cutter to basically find out Gary and then cut his throat in front of
Yeah.
everybody. Like it's fucking brutal, which is crazy because this current issue, Cutter's not in it at all. But
Yeah.
The lasting effects of what she did in the last issue are just, they resound loudly. It's pretty insane. So I mean, you have her set up now in a whole. Well, she was just freed from a holding cell in police department in New Mexico. Cutter had murdered all of the police officers on duty, so she's setting her up there so that she's got the cops on the hunt for her now, and probably the feds on the hunt for her now. And now, the houses are going to be after her. She's after her, and there's still a monster.
Well, and didn't she also make the monster take the shape of Erica? I think that happened at the end of one of the last two issues. So there's like, I mean, but it's really interesting because, so you think they're bringing Cutter out because she's ruthless and she's going to take care of Erica. And clearly that shows the level of alarm that the dragon has if he's willing to risk, because he's saying like the Cutter's a loose can't, like she's a problem for the House of Cutter. Like it's only under an extreme circumstance we bring her out here. But now I'm wondering, or is he banking on Erica killing her and then he's going to use that leverage against the House of Cutter? Or, I mean, it doesn't seem as clear cut as it did at the beginning of this arc when they contacted Cutter. And she not only will dispatch, she doesn't care who she kills, but she also, the liability issue, I think, is like, she's a psychopath and she'll go in and kill the monster, but then she'll also be like, well, you know what? I'm going to kill all these people too, and I'm going to torture them just because I can, under the auspices of like protocol or whatever. But I think everybody's aware.
I get to blame it on you anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's aware. No, she is a fucking psychopath masquerading as a monster hunter. She is a monster.
Agreed.
I mean, I can't fucking wait to see the two of them fight. Oh my God. Talk about.
It's going to be brutal, but I like where this is gone with the last issue where she fucked up and left her bag there.
Yes. Oh yeah. That was good. That was really good.
Erica's like, I might have a way of tipping this in our favor.
She's got her fucking totem.
Oh yeah, she's got her one-eyed doll. And I'm like, oh, this could be fucked up because if Cutter's a big enough cunt, I'm sure her totem, the monster that's within, because these things can be freed. And that's the thing. If this thing has enough guff inside of it still, it's a huge threat to Cutter herself. So there might be a way for her to untether it. I don't know yet. I'm curious to see how that element of the lore and mythology works in that favor. I think that would be really cool to see. They've got a lot of awesome setups going along for them right now, and it's very contained. And for a lot of people, this is why they might like Something Is Killing the Children more than Department of Truth. I like Department of Truth for the simple fact that it just goes on fucking infinitely, and it's something that will bother you as you lay in bed at night. You know what I mean? It goes so many places to so many different corners and avenues of our minds, in places of just daily routine that we don't even think about, and some of it is utterly mortifying. Whereas this is more of a straightforward story. It's very linear. And I can see why people would like this more than the other. It is a tad top heavy on the Department of Truth side. But for those that are willing to, really be allowed to be swept up in it, I think there's a lot of fucking really interesting stories to be told. And it's a shame that it's on hiatus right now. But I also understand that Tinian and Boddicker, they're doing their Blue Book right now, right? For Dark Horse, is that what's going on with those guys?
It appears to be a nonfiction. So the first issue came out this week, and it is literally just a telling of, and it's a real thing mentioned in Department of Truth. It's the couple. It's an interracial couple in the early 60s who are driving home from a vacation in Montreal, I think it's Montreal, and in Canada to New Hampshire, and they encounter what they think is a UFO, and neither one of them are UFO believers or whatever. And so they mention it in Department of Truth just offhandedly, like, out of all these people, they named certain people that saw UFOs and how it happened, and these people come up. So this is an actual like recounting of that story. So there's nothing fictional about it. It's just this is what happened to these people. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I picked up the book on Friday.
There's like a second story in there too about Coney Island that was really like it like smash cuts, like you're reading Blue Book and then like from one page to the next it's another story. It looks totally different, and I was like, wait, is this like an advance? Because sometimes they sneak in like a few pages from a new book or something to whet your appetite, but no, it's like I don't know if each issue is going to have two stories. It was a shorter story. I don't know, it was really odd, but it was again about some weird sighting at Coney Island that was never explained.
Okay.
So
yeah, I just picked the issue up on Friday. I'll be reading it this evening for sure.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, I want Department of Truth back, but obviously also Tinian is one of the busiest motherfuckers in comics. So, like recharge your battery.
Agreed.
Like I'm okay with like right now, I'm okay with Department of Truth being on hiatus because it got us to this point. There's a big change coming with what it sets up at the end of the last issue, and then something that's killing the children. It can't go on hiatus right now. It is, you're 100% correct. It's way more of like a page turner, or like it's more straightforward with what it is. Monster killer. There's intrigue and other agendas going on, but for the most part, it's a battle.
Yeah, for like the question for our listeners right now is like, well, what the hell does this have to do with me being on a horror channel listening to you guys talk about this? The fucking title of the book is called Something is Killing the Children. Yes, children die in these fucking books. Children are horrifically mutilated in it. Some of the later like House of Slaughter covers were like they did the whole body bag editions.
Yeah,
gruesome depictions of like monsters eating kids' brains and shit like that.
Yeah, super cool.
Totally fucked up shit. Totally fucked up shit. Love it. As far as like horror elements in there, it's chock full. It's everything. It's everything you want to see. It's not your atypical. Here's the hero thwarting evil, and I'm gonna let you go, and I'll you won't win next time or what have you.
Yeah.
There's some definite there are casualties,
yes,
and umpteen amounts of casualties, and it is horrible what happens to these people's lives. And it's one of those things where even they wouldn't wish it on anybody, even the kids that they save, because a lot of the little kids that they save idolize them. They want to become them. And remember, Erica tells the young men toward the beginning, look, I'm not saving you. I'm not taking you with you. I'm not going to train you. You're not going to become this. I'm not going to do that. That ain't fucking for you. It ain't happening. Don't even think about it. My life is fucking shit. Exactly.
Yeah,
like,
it's a
my
nightmare.
best friend is a fucking monster and a doll. Like,
yeah, right.
Fucked. Like there's no happy ending for you. Yeah, because how's it going to end for her? It ain't going to be well. There aren't a lot of retired hunters. There aren't. Like they die horrifically. And that's shown. That's already happened in the series, and it's very grim. It is a very well written, very well illustrated piece of art that we have going right now that we're going to get to see on screen very soon. Netflix had announced just a few days ago, in fact, that they now have a team hired that they're going to start working on the show, preparing for Netflix's release. They had announced this 2-3 years ago now.
Yeah,
and you've heard nothing on it. And so now this is going to be a thing where more people are going to be able to be exposed to it. And awesome.
Yeah, it'll make a good show.
I agree. And Department of Truth has been optioned. I'm not sure what's going on as far as movement is going with that. I imagine that'll be very fun. I don't know how they're going to be able to create a lot of what's going on in that book. It's going to be very low budget, if anything.
Well, I mean, a lot of it's like ideas, so that actually might be easier to translate to some degree than something that's killing children with these monsters or whatever. But I will say the team you know, it's Baron Bodar and Jante Frisch who did Dark, which is, in my opinion, I mean, it's just a fucking 3-season masterpiece. And we just finished watching the first season of their new show, 1899, and I really liked it. And you know, we get to the end of it, and it's a huge fucking cliffhanger that just remaps the entire everything you thought you knew about the show. Nope, it's this. And then they cancel. Netflix isn't picking it up. But I'm almost wondering if they're not picking it up because now they're like, no, we want you to focus on this because this is a big deal. This is going to be, there's a lot of momentum behind this. So, I mean, I'm sorry to lose 1899. Who knows? Maybe if something's killing the children, maybe they could bring it back later. I don't know. But I think they're a good team to do it because I mean, man, Dark is a fucking masterpiece. So
same thing with Witches. That's finally got some movement going too over at Amazon.
yeah.
Jacques and Snyder are both returning to the series to oversee it. It ends up it's going to be an animated thing that they're doing, which if that gives Jacques a free range to really go wild with his art style, that's going to be something to behold. So I'm really excited for that as well. But it's cool that these little secret places that we have as readers are starting to kind of open up around us, and people are getting welcomed in. I'm glad to see that a lot of these things are coming to the forefront of current pop culture and horror culture and whatnot, that these things are now mediums to be taken seriously instead of just kind of brushed off like they were in the past. Especially just like I said with comic book stuff, because I mean, to this day, it's like, oh, so you just read Spider-Man? Yeah, that's what I do on my spare time. I read Spider-Man and Doctor Doom. Like that's what I do for fun. Fuck you. No offense to Spider-Man readers.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that it's getting the recognition that it deserves, and even if it's a cool like jumping point for a lot of these guys to go out and do something bigger, fantastic. And if that jumping point provides enough like funds for them to go back and do what they started doing originally and continue on doing what they love, then more power to them.
Yeah.
Fucking take the money and run and expose as many people as you possibly can to what they're doing out there, because it's fantastic work. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to the conversation?
I say that's
I feel
it.
like we have gone on quite a bit. We have gone quite a bit for sure.
Well, there's a lot of material, and I mean, just to recap, I do believe they're connected. Something's killing the children, House of Slaughter, Department of Truth, and whether or not that means that there'll actually be a crossover, I kind of don't think it'll be that. Like I feel like it'll be a little bit more nuanced, but I do think that they're going to influence one another. The books will influence one another, continue to do so, and it'll become more apparent.
Yeah, I think it'll be a mention in passing, and then hopefully something that is like, if that, gets the readers a little wet, maybe they'll come back for something a little more.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you're ever going to see Cole and Erica fighting side by side, but I could see.
I don't want to see that.
No, I don't want to see that either. I could see though, like maybe some kind of a communication with the Great House, or I don't know what. I mean, any number of ways that they could do it and be a little bit more like restrained about it. But
because I mean, have to do. There's a whole bunch of things that have to go on. Cole has to get the trepanation and all that other shit in order to see what he's doing. Like it just doesn't. There's just too much.
Yeah. So, but I mean, if you're listening, I'm assuming that you're reading them, or if you're not, and now, I mean, if you listen this far and you haven't read them, I'm going to assume you're going to go pick them up, and I'll just tell you, I think both books are great. So that's that.
Agreed.
All right, cool,
I think
man.
You'll have fun with the art styles. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Oh, Department of Truth. It's not going to be for everybody, but man, the people who it's for. Oh man, didn't think I'd ever see a book that looked like that again.
There's enough in those books where there's enough going on. There's enough threads in that book to where you will find the one thing that fucking sends the chill up your spine. It is in there. It is in those books. It is in whatever it is you're looking for. It is in there, because I found mine at least a couple of times now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's in there. Anyway,
Cool. All right, man. Well, we can call it. So for the Horror Vision, I'm Shawn.
I am Anthony.
And just remember, the truth is out there, and it might just be killing the children.